finally some new episodes on this channel. So hey guys, welcome back to a brand new Photoshop / Light Talk tutorial. My name is Manny and you can still find me on Retutpro.com. Guys, quickly before we head into the Light Talk today, I want to explain quickly why I haven't uploaded for 5 years. So in the latest video on the channel, there were a few guys asking for where's Manny, why is he not uploading anymore? I quickly want to let you know what happened. Basically, I moved from South Africa to my home country, Namibia, took a lot of money that I made on YouTube and built a local business / studio, photography, video, social media, and so on. We produce a lot of local content for our local clients, and that we have done in the last 5 years. I've also along the way built a massive team, got a nice office, studio, got a partner, and all of these people have amazing skills and talents, which I would really like to introduce to this channel and to you guys so I can give you more value again and also build this channel. Guys, it has been a crazy journey the last 5 years, but finally I'm at that point where the local business is running and I have time again to come back to YouTube, and also I'm super excited to produce new content. So yeah, quick disclaimer why and what happened the last 5 years. Also, do let me know in the comments down below if you just want to say hi, give a thumbs up again, or if you have questions or thoughts, let me know. I'm excited to see if there are people still out here watching the tutorials, and I can't wait to see new content. So yeah guys, enough of the talking, enough of me. Let's head right away into the Light Talk. I think that will still give you a lot of value. It's a bit of an older class that comes from one of our pro tutorials called The Photographer. And it's a pretty intense light setup with I think about 4 to 5 different lights. So yeah, it has always been just under the course, a class, but now I'm gonna give it out for free. So let's start reviving the channel with that. And let's head right away into the tutorial.
Okay, so Manny and I, we used a combination of Pro Photo and Elinchrom lights for our shot that we did. I think when it comes to strobes, it doesn't really matter what you're using. Obviously, the more you pay, the better quality they are. But I don't think it should stop you from doing shots if you don't have expensive strobes. So if you've got a set of budgets of strobes, I think it's kind of whatever you've got to make the shot work, that's what you do. I think when we started it was the same.
Yeah, exactly.
We pretty much beg, borrow, not quite steal, but whatever it took to get the shot done, that's what we did. So at the moment that's our setup. So the light specifically was the Pro Photo D1s, yeah, the D1 Airs. Which are nice in that they are mono lights, and you can so obviously they can plug in to mains in studio, as well as having the optional backpack, which is quite nice for location work, so that's great. And then the Elinchroms, I think we use mostly I think the BRX lights. Obviously they all plug in, and powers, most of them probably around about 500 or thereabouts,
yeah,
but
500.
That's pretty much what we worked with. Right, so let's look at what lights we used for the shot, as well as the light modifiers. So the first light you can see coming up was our hair light. For that we used one of the Pro Photo lights with a beauty dish and a grid. The reason we're using the grid on that is just to focus that light so that it specifically is only on the hair. Maybe some of it spills onto the shoulders, but you're really containing it so that it doesn't get out of hand and spill on the whole scene. So it's really the whole setup that we used yesterday. All the light was very focused on specific areas, and that really works when you want to start layering light and combining lights, multiple lights in the same shot. The second light you'll see is the right rim light. Again, for that we used one of the Elinchrom lights, and we used a strip light for that, as well as a grid, again, just to focus the light. That one we placed, you'll see in the diagram later on, we probably placed it a little bit behind the subject, kind of pointing away from the background and just hitting the subject quite specifically. The left rim light is the next one, so there you can see again pretty much the same effect, strip light with a grid, and there's some good they're very well matched, we can see there in terms of intensity and the effect of the light. So you might want to just play around with that and position them forward and backwards in the angle just to get it exactly right according to the feel of the shot. But that's the effect there. Light number 4 was our key light. Again, for that we used a beauty dish with a grid. So that probably you could see is the brightest light of all of the shots that we used. Obviously, we refer to that as our key light. There again, we used the grid on that, again, so that we could focus the light and avoid it spilling all over our shot. We wanted the shot to graduate a little bit darker towards the bottom of the shot, so we didn't really want the key light to light the whole subject. So you can see there, we placed it probably just to camera, slightly off center to camera left, and it was probably about a foot or so above the subject, thereabouts. Light number 5 was our fill light. So for that we used a big umbrella, a little bit further back behind our shooting position. So you can see again there it's very subtle, and we focused that a little bit lower just to fill a little bit of light into the bottom of the subject. We wanted really the subject's head, we really wanted to light mostly with the beauty dish with our key light. So you can see on the full light it's just bouncing a little bit of detail back into the bottom of the shot. And that's really just so we keep the detail. So we didn't really want to expose the bottom of the shot to the same intensity as basically the sort of the shoulders and the head. We really just wanted to make sure that we keep detail in the shadows. So you can see that it's quite a low intensity. And then our final light was our background light.
Yeah.
That we used to create the little light behind the subject. So for that we used just a small monolight with a I think we used a honeycomb on that. No, we actually didn't.
We started with the honeycomb,
yeah,
but then we removed the honeycomb.
We did, that's right. Actually, what we found was when we used the honeycomb, we got a good highlight or nice circular highlight behind the subject that worked very well, but the edges were very dark. It was pretty much too focused. So we took the honeycomb or the grid off the light, and we moved it back a bit just to enable us to, for some of the light from that light, also to light the rest of the background, just so that the corners didn't go quite as dark as they were. Because especially when we want to add the gradient afterwards, you don't really want to work with black, or should I say the textures. You still want to keep detail in that. You can always add more, darken it off in post-production. But if you don't have the detail when you start, then it gets a little bit difficult. And then also we used 2 poly boards to flag the light. So also when we saw that the background was a little bit dark, what we did is we did the 2 poly boards just to bounce some of the 2 rim lights back onto the background. So we just placed it just probably next to the subject, just to bounce some of that light back.
Exactly. Yeah, in one term, I think in once you can actually use it to flag light first of all if you don't have grids.
Yes, that's
on the strips.
Especially when the light, obviously when we're focusing the light towards the camera, you want to avoid flare, especially the fact if you're shooting slightly more wide angle, you are going to be more prone to flare than you would if you're shooting further back with a lens hood with maybe a 100mm or a 90mm lens. So yeah, a flag can come in quite handy in instances like that. The grid also helps with that though, on the modifiers.
Yeah, that's a good explanation about the whole lights that we've used, the light modifiers as well.
Cool. We're going to talk about settings and just grade ratios.
Sure, we can do that.
So basically, as you can see there, if you look at the diagram, you can see that the 2 rim lights are probably the brightest lights that we used in terms of exposure. And the hair light was probably, when we measured the hair light, it was actually about the same exposure as the 2 side lights. Yeah. It's looking a little bit darker on that, but I think in post we adjusted and the final shot, it did come through quite nicely. So typically for this kind of portrait, you probably want to do your rim lights around about one f-stop brighter than the rest of your exposure, especially your key light. So if you look at your key light, you probably want your rim lights to be 1 stop brighter. And we can see there the other lights, it's really, the nice thing shooting digitally is we can get a good idea, you can feel it out as you progress on the shot, where the exposures are where you want them to be. But I guess the full light is probably a stop and a half darker than the key light.
Definitely.
And then that background light, again there you can kind of just set the exposure on that depending on how much light you want behind the subject and how much sort of gradient you want off to the edges of the shot.
Yeah, also I think how far you place it to the background will also determine how far your spill will go.
Yeah, exactly. So that's a good point. For that background light, obviously, when we took the grid off, so we could work quite far back with that light. With the grid, it was a very focused light. When we took it off, that would then be quite flat and it would spill quite evenly over the background. So if you still want that nice sort of accentuated or punchy light behind it, then you just move it closer and you'll actually get that effect. So some of it will spill, but so depending on how close you work with it, you'll still get a nice difference between a very bright area behind and then it graduates off to the edges quite nicely.
I think I wouldn't spend too much time on the shooting with that. Try to get it very even, and in post you can always brighten it up or darken it easily. So it's not, don't pay too much attention on it.
I think that's a good point. We also, before we did the shot, we said, should we do the backlight? You could probably do this without it. It saves you time by shooting with it because then you don't really have to do it on the background or your texture layer. You can obviously create a texture layer that's brighter in the center and off to the edges, but it just saves you time. And a lot of commercial photography, the more efficiently you work, and the more you can do in camera, it will save you quite a bit of time in retouching afterwards. So,
yeah, guys, that's it for this week's tutorial. I hope you enjoyed it. Do let me know in the comments down below, even if you just want to say hi, give me a shout. I'm excited to see that. Yeah, and stay tuned. We're going to upload some more tutorials now again on this channel. And once again, thanks for watching. See you all in the next tutorial. Bye-bye, guys. The last 5 years have been pretty hectic. Do you see my eyes? Yes, no sleep, just grinding.